Hi all. Welcome back to BLR Knowledge Center. In this video session, we are going to talk about a bit on .NET 8 and using .NET 8, ASP.NET MVC code and Entity Framework code. We are going to create some sample application to demonstrate how we are going to use this .NET 8 version to develop web applications. So So in this session, I'm going to use .NET 8 and MVC core as the architectural pattern. I'm going to use it. And entity framework core is ORM model, object relational mapping, which we using it for connecting to SQL Server here to get the tables or to create a database and tables into SQL Server. So, so as part of this demonstration, I'm going to explain about CRUD operations by just connecting to SQL Server using uh, entity framework code. And we'll discuss about how to create a database, a table, or any record stored into SQL Server, and then how to read the data from SQL Server via entity framework code, and how to update a record via entity framework code and delete the record via entity framework code into SQL Server. So as part of this demonstration, I'm going to take employee object. I'm going to create some screens to add employee to database and fetch the employees list and display on UI, and also how I'm going to edit an employee and how I'm going to delete an employee. With all operations, I'm going to create employee portal here, and using entity framework core and MVC core, I'm going to perform all CRUD operations. So the first screen I'm going to create is add employee, which is basically having some fields here. And on entering all these fields, clicking on save button, I'm going to connect it to SQL Server via entity framework core ORM model and save the data into SQL Server database table. And to create this, I'm going to use Bootstrap class CSS here. So CSS classes like, this button styling and other stuff, and the text box styling and, label styling and the background of the screen. All these themes I'm going to use Bootstrap styles here and develop this screen. And also I'm going to create employees a list screen here where it is going to read all employees from the SQL Server database and display here the list. And each employee record is displaying with edit button here, and clicking on edit button, it is navigating to the edit employee screen, wherein you just edit this employee and just click on update, which will get again save into database. Okay, so this is where edit employee screen looks like. And again, this is similar to add employee screen, wherein Bootstrap styles are integrating and developing the screen. So in this screen, I'll be having an extra button here, update, delete, wherein it deletes record from employee table, which will update same changes to SQL Server via entity framework core. Okay, so now let's get started this demonstration. I'm just opening my Visual Studio, wherein I'm going to create the .NET 8 project. So this is what my Visual Studio screen looks like. Where is that? Let me come back. Visual Studio. So I think it will display whatever projects have been already created here. And here, just click on a new project here. So it will navigate to the other wizard where and it display all the templates here. And as part of this demo, I'm going to choose a language here, the C# because this is the basic language you need to understand. Nowadays, C# is the most popular programming language, and I'm going to demonstrate this employee application development on .NET 8 version using C# language. Hence, I'm going to choose this, and this is something I think for now I'm going to create on Windows, and I'm going to develop web application. I'm just choosing a web. So in this templates, I'm going to choose ASP.NET Core Web App with MVC model. So scroll down here and you can see here this template, ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller, and click on Next. It navigates to other wizard wherein it asks for mention the project name. So here I'm going to give employee application or employee portal, right? And this is where the location it is going to be stored. So I'll keep as it is, and it will save in this particular .NET folder. And this is a solution name. If you want to keep as it is, you can keep it. But I just wanted to differentiate. Hence, I'm going to say that this is a web, and the solution, I'm not removing this part, and I'll just create this solution as employee portal itself. Click on next. It goes to other wizard wherein it asks for choosing a framework version. So if you click on framework versions here, and you will be having different frameworks available in the system. I have already installed latest .NET 8 version. And if you're not able to see these particular versions, and please make sure that already you install the latest .NET framework. Otherwise, you need to choose the existing .NET framework versions here. So here I have a .NET 6, which is a long-term support LTS, and .NET 7 STS standard term support. And this is the long-term support .NET 8, which was released by Microsoft, maintained by Microsoft recently. And I'm going to choose this. The difference between this standard term and long term is long term basically supports till 3 years, right? 36 months. And standard term support supports only 18 months. Hence, I think we always choose, companies basically chooses this long term support version. So I'm going to choose .NET 8 because I wanted to give a demonstration of .NET 8. And as part of this demo, I'll not be touching this authentication type. Hence, I'm going to I'll not touch this. I'll keep as it is, right? Also configure for HTTPS. I'm going to give as it is, and clicking on create, it will provide this scaffolding folder structure wherein it adds all the default files and configurations as part of this project creation. So looking at here, now my file is created, and here in this file, solution, if you look at here, this is employee portal web, wherein I'm having different folders, controllers, and this is models, and this is views. That's what MVC core I'm using it here. And the first file we started with program.cs file. This is where the starting file, which is basically landing here when you run a program. So if you just looking at this particular program.cs file, the entry point for ASP.NET Core, web applications or API applications, it contains the application startup code. This is something which will create startup logics here, how to set up the web host and define configurations, and all these things are spread in the startup class program.cs. So this program.cs file also contains the logic for starting the server, listening for requests, and configuring the applications. Right now, if you look at here, builder is created here, and for the builder, I'm going to so you can see here, add controllers with views. This is something which is going to add all the views with the controllers. Sorry, all controllers with views. If you look at here, I have home controller here, which basically having two endpoints here, like index and privacy, right? So using this particular index, right, this is going to return to a relevant view. In this case, index view here in the home controller, you will see index.cshtml. This is the markup page which will get loaded on, go to the index. And coming to the privacy, right, this is going to return to the relevant privacy.cshtml when it calls return view. So if you look at program.cs file, we have a map controller root. So a root specifies a default name is default, and the controller home, and the action is index. That means when you open this particular or run this particular project, it will by default open the index, or by default it will execute index action. So when it execute index action, it returns a view which will opens the relevant index view here. That is the default routing. Here we have it. So builder method creates an object of web application builder with the pre-configured defaults, and services configure services required by the application, and request handling pipelines and exception handlers. All these are defined the app's request handling pipelines as a series of middleware components. So this is the middleware components we used to have here to specify. So no matter how many methods you are calling it here, but make sure that the order how you are giving it here is very important in the program.cs file. So this program.cs file serves as the entry point and no kind of landing the user request, right, into ASP.NET Core web applications. It sets up the web host, defines configurations, and other startup classes with bulk of where the bulk of application configurations and services are configured. Okay, so now to make more understanding on this, so we have seen controller and we have seen views, right? And coming to the models, we don't have any meaningful models. This is the by default model. It is added a structure of model wherein it executes an error occurs. That's okay, fine. And coming to these properties, we have launch settings. So this launch settings basically having different profiles here, like HTTP, HTTPS, and IIS Express. And you can see all these profiles here in this drop down as well. And by default, it's selected HTTPS. If you want to run this, you just choose HTTP so that it will run on HTTP. And if you choose HTTPS, it will run on HTTPS. So when you run this HTTPS, it will launch this particular request, that is localhost 7000 or 5135. And with that, it is going to browse. And even you can change this profile names, HTTP profile, and save it, which will get reflected here, HTTP profile, so that it will come here and it will take this particular application URL and start executing it. Let's try this and see like how it is running. Let's run this so that it will go to the default routing here, home and index. That means index page has to be displayed, right? Let me see. Yeah. So this is what the default index.cshtml, and you can navigate through controller, home, and index, which will navigate to same page. And if you want to navigate to privacy, you can just type privacy so that it will navigate to privacy. And same thing, you can navigate from here, tab click. When clicking on home, it goes to default routing, which does not require to display here because by default it represents home and index. And privacy, again, it is displaying the routing here because it does not define here default, and so it is showing here a home privacy. And going to the views here, if you look at views, we have a home, index, and privacy, and index.cshtml. This is complete view is going to display on clicking on view, privacy view, like privacy policy, and use the space details your sites, right? Privacy policy. So this is privacy policy title. It is displaying here, and this is the title which is displaying here, employee portal and privacy policy. And even you can just change this particular view so that it will display. This is updated view, and just save it, which will automatically reflect into this runtime. So see here, I just save. Now it is reflected automatically because of hard reload feature, which is a new feature we have in .NET, which will get automatically reload the page and reflect the UI with the updated content. If it is not updating it here, please make sure that this option has to be selected. Go to tools, and here go to debugging. And in this debugging, you have .NET and C++ hard reload, and you need to make sure that this option is selected. So if it is not selected, and you guys has to select this and click on OK so that it will reflect. Similar way, welcome to employee app demonstration. Just save it. Now go and see here. This is automatically reflecting UI. Okay, so now go back to Visual Studio. So now the views are ready and controllers are ready. Now we need to create an entity framework code because MVC is available here, model views controller. Now we need to create a controller here. So as part of this entity framework code, you need to add, you need to integrate this entity framework code using a namespace called Microsoft.entity framework code.sql server. Just click on dependencies, go to NuGet package manager, and make sure that these namespaces has to be added. So one thing is Microsoft.entity framework code.sql server, and another thing was Microsoft.entity framework code.tools. This is for connectivity to the SQL server, and this is for CLI commands to migrating the database and updating databases. First, add this particular reference, just browse it and choose the SQL server and click on install and click on accept and apply. So it will get installed. And again, go back here and add tools. Click on tools, and you can see all the commands which default supports by these tools. Basically, it is a area where you can execute all the migration commands. So just click on install and apply, and I accept. So now it is added here in the dependencies. You can see all the packages you are added, SQL Server and tools, all are .NET 8 version types. Now we need to add application DB context here to talk to SQL Server to create database objects and tables. So we need to create a folder here called data, wherein you need to create application data context. So what I'll do is I'm going to create folder here, select apply and data, add a new folder and mention data, and clicking on this, just add a class. So I'm just renaming this class as application DB context. So which basically creates application DB context class, and this has to be derived from a main DB context. So this basically comes from this the entity framework core, and this is by default adding on top of this particular class. And then you need to add a constructor to this class. So to pass the options which you are sending from UI. So you just type CTOR and press enter or tab. It will add a constructor here. So for this constructor, you need to pass options. We need to pass DB context options. Of application DB context type options, and same options I need to pass to base class options. So whatever options I'm passing to this constructor, this same options I'm going to pass it to the main parent class, parent DB context class. So now we need to think of like what needs to be demonstrated as part of this demo. So we need to create CRUD operations on employee object. Hence, we need to have a class here. Let me create an entity inside of model. Let me create a model, a new folder, and entity. So let me entities. So entity is nothing but an object which will contains attributes and properties and methods. So here, as part of demonstration, I want to create a entity for employee. Hence, I'm going to create a class for employee. So I'll just say employee class here. So I'm going to create employee. So I'll rename this to employee.cs. So inside this employee class, so I'm going to create a constructor like public employee. But before to this, I need to make sure that I'm going to create some attributes like, as I mentioned, I'm going to create good value emp id, which is get and set, and I need to create other property called emp name and get and set, and other thing I'm going to create string email, and I'm going to create string form. So I'm going to create employee ID and employee name, email, phone, and I'm going to have int salary. So these are the fields I'm going to have it. Like MP ID, MP name, and email, and phone number, a salary, like this. Now these values I'm going to capture, and so send all those details to a SQL Server using Entity Framework Core. So let's save this. Now going to the application DB context. Now here I'm going to create a method here, public DB set, because we need to create a DB context here, which is part of Entity Framework Core. So I'm going to create of type employees. So employees and get and set. So this is basically a proxy between application and SQL Server uh, via an entity framework core, which will use it for reading data from database and pass the data to SQL Server. So we need to inject the data into SQL Server via entity framework code. So we need to inject this application DB context into a program.cs so that it will run automatically when you run the entity code framework operations. So after this, add controllers with views. You need to add builder dot services dot add DB context of application DB context, like this. So we need to provide some options, like what options you are taking and to which database you are performing. So you need to specify link use kind of syntax that options dot use SQL Server of, and for this SQL Server we need to pass a connection string to connect that particular SQL Server with this application DB context. So you need to specify that connection string here. If you look at the parameters of this use SQL Server, we need to mention the SQL Server connection string here. So first we need to define the SQL Server connection, and then that SQL Server connection we need to pass to a DB context here. So go back to the app settings.json here and just press comma here and just try to add connection strings key. And this is kind of array. I'm going to add it, and employee portal is the connection key. I'm giving it here, and here I'm going to say server. I'm going to say some server name here. Let me copy this from a DB server name, and I'm going to give it here. So let me go back here and specify the server name, which I'm going to take it here. So what I'll do is I'll go to my local database. This is what my local database. I'm going to create it. So, and in this, I'm going to create the table here. So that's the reason I'm mentioning this connection string as this way. So these are something values I'm going to mention it here. So like, this is the server name, which you are going to mention it here, and the database name you are going to specify here as employee portal DB, and UID and password and trust certificate equal to true. This is the way of mentioning the connection string. So once you mention this, just save it. So let me give this and save this and go back to your program.cs file, and here use SQL Server. Here in this, you say that builder dot configuration dot get connection, so that it will read the connection string, that is employee portal. This is what the connection string we have mentioned there. So you need to make sure that same name you have to give it in the app settings, whatever name you have mentioned here, employee portal, same name you need to give it here. So you need to make sure that same name you are going to give it, so that it will get the connection string of this relevant key and pass it to SQL Server to connect. And that same options it is passing to a DB context. So with that, it is going to create a tables and DB into this particular database using the migration commands. So coming to this application DB context, using this particular employees proxy class, it will talk to the SQL server and insert employees and get the employees here. So to create database uh, to the database SQL server, we need to create a migration. And to create a migration, we have to use a command called add migration. So go back to the NuGet package manager console, where you just enter this command called add migration, and you just mention that initial migration. You just press enter, so that it is going to start connecting to the given SQL server, and then it will create the mentioned database into the relevant database. So it is succeeded, and you go back to here. I think enable DB context exception that employee requires a primary key to be defined, intended to use keyless entity type, call has no key. Okay, type. Let me go back here and send this here. And EMP ID is GUI type have been created here. So what is the problem inside of it? So let me see here what are the fields have been created. EMP ID and EMP name, email, and salary. Okay. Make sure that the columns are fine. The student, employee, salary, and what is that exception we have seen? Let's check once again the console. DB context of type, the exception, the entity type employee requires a primary key to be defined. If you intended to use keyless entity type call has no key in model creating for, okay, and application DB context employee implies and get and set, and this is the employee have been created EMP ID, and I think we'll use this as ID, and let's try this. And migration, initialize migration. Yeah, now it is started and created. So if you go back to solution, you can see that data and migration folder is added here. So with this particular command, uh, which you are running here, add migration, initial migration, it has created two CS files, initial migration and application DB context model snapshot. If you just open this initial migration CS file, you can see here this migration is having two methods, up and down. So up is for creating a table and down is for dropping employees. So create this table employees with these columns, ID, EMP name, email, phone, salary. So these are particular columns created. And by default, it has added ID column as primary key. So going back to this application DB context here, and we need to make sure that we need to create this employees DB object with these particular columns, and with these values we need to update the data and send it to entity framework core. And now if you look at the database, and you can see here, and this database, I didn't see any employee portal database. So now I need to make sure that I need to create that database into database server. So to do this, we need to go back to Visual Studio, and you need to run another command in the console, like NuGet package manager and console. So I'll be just running a command called update database. That's what the another command you need to make sure that to run at NuGet package manager console, update database. So update database and hit on enter. It is going to apply this scripts onto the given database. Now go to SQL Server and observe this particular database, and you will see this Still not refreshed. Still not created. So still it is not updating database. So let me refresh this, go back to this and see this succeeded migration. Okay, and go back to this and see here what is the database name it has taken. Employee portal, web models, and this is the table. Let's click, clearly refresh this. Still not created. What database we have mentioned? Let me see here and go to this app settings. Hopes this was mentioned as student portal, and make sure that this is employee portal DB. Save it. So let me try this. Let me remove this and run this migration. Add migration. It is just initial migration. Just hitting enter. It is going to create migration folder here. And in this, I'm going to have employee up and down two methods for creating and dropping table. Now update database and hit the button and go back to the SQL Server and see now. Just refresh this. And now you can see employee portal DB here with the table employee. So wherein it creates employee table with given columns, and just expand this and you can see the columns here: ID, EMP name, email, phone, salary. Okay, this is how it is going to create the database using migration commands, and with that we are able to successfully create a table and database in SQL Server. And now we need to make sure that these values are properly coming from this employees object, so that it will connect to the SQL Server and post the data into DB server. Okay, so now let's try this. So we need to create a controller for employee object here. And in this controller, we need to add the CRUD operations endpoints here. I'm going to add controller and choose empty and add this as employee controller, which will creates default index view. So here you just add, right? And mark this as HTTP get, because I'm only uh, right getting the data in this case. And for this, I'm going to add a view here. So I'll add a Razor view here. I'm going to give a name as add, which will add empty Razor view syntax uh, template here. So here we can add HTML to display this add employee here, employee. So as I have shown you in the PPT, so I'm going to create some Bootstrap controllers. Like, I'm going to create a text box here. So I'll create a group here. That is 3 groups I'm going to create for now. And inside of this, I'm going to create. So I need to create EMP name and EMP email. And if you look at here, I need to create EMP name, email, phone. These 4 we need to create. So label, and for the label, I'm going to create class, a Bootstrap uh, class. I'm giving form label. This is EMP name. And I'll add input control here. That is text class equal to form. This is a simple input I'm going to create it. So just let run this and see like how this ad screen is creating. So I think this should be control. Let me run this and see like how it is running. So we have added employee controller. Like if we just use a /employee and the ad, which will display this particular view. Let's see this, how it is showing. So employee /add. Now you can see add employee, which is default displayed add employee with EMP name label, and is the control which is displaying by Bootstrap CSS. Now we'll repeat this particular stuff here for other fields. Copy this particular stuff and add it. This is email, and this is email, and this is next is phone. This is a text. Final one is, what is this? Salary, and this is salary, and of type text, or you can give new number. And let's see this how it is rendering. Go back to your UI. You can see that Bootstrap, you will getting these fields with the Bootstrap CSS, EMP name, and email, phone, salary. And now I'm going to add a button so that how it is displaying in the button. So I'll just take one more section and add a button here. So going back here, and I'll take this copy and paste. And here I'll remove this stuff and I'll use button. Remove this and type. I'm saying submit because I need to hit to the API method. The class is a Bootstrap class, BDN primary, which will display in highlighted blue color. And this is save. Let's go back to UI and see how it looks like. This is just appearing as the primary highlighted color of Bootstrap. Now go back to your .NET and bind this view model to the uh, employee DB context we have created here when clicking on save button. So we have to create a model, and that model we need to bind to the controller. So going to the code here and click on this model, click on uh, creating a class called, this is, just add a new item as a class. I'm just hitting add employee uh, new model.cs. So I'm just creating a class here. So now I'm going to bind this stuff to uh, employee model. So here I need to paste whatever fields I'm going to map. GUID anyway, it's dynamically generating it. I'm going to paste it here, these fields, and going to this CSHTML, and I'm just binding a model. We need to give full path, employee portal dot dot and models dot add employee model. By writing this line, we can have access to add employee view model, and you can use the add employee view model attributes to this particular controls. So here we have attributes for binding, that is ASP4 equal to, this is EMP name, and this is email, and this is for phone, and this is for salary. So with that, I just binded the fields of add employee view model to this particular UI. Now going to the controller, just try to add endpoints here. Let's add public action results, add of add employee view model, a view model, return a view, and this I'm specifying as HTTP post. So now when you go and run this and see like how it is working, just put a debugger point here and try to run this. When you run this application, and you will see the add employee screen over there, and then you try to enter the data and click on save button. So let me say employee add button, add. Now I'll say bearer, and this is my email ID, and this is my phone number, and this is my salary. Try to click on save. So I think we need to add a post method. Clicking on the save button, the page has to be submitted. So I think we need to make some changes to add CSHTML. Go back to here. And after this head tag, you need to add form method and specify method as post. And keep all these things inside of form tag. And now try to run and try to enter same data and click on the save button, add, and try to enter some details and gmail.com and some phone number and some salary, and click on save it. And now you can see here view model, all are coming as null. Oops. So what we missed, let's see what we missed here. Add employee view model. It's coming with 0 values. Add employee view model, EMP name, ASP4, and email and salary. Add employee model, EMP name, email, phone, and salary. So what we missed, this model we have added, and the post method. So EMP name, let me give this as name and email, phone, salary, and this is the save button we have added, and submit click, it is coming to server. That's fine. And this is the label and form control, ASP form. Sorry, this is ASP for, not form. My mistake it is. Okay, let me click on here, continue. Let me stop it. Now you can see some issue here where it is talking about object reference not set an instance. Let me close this and try to rerun this application now. Uh, so now application is running now. So try to add employee. Now this BR and in member and some the salary, and try to click on save. Now you see here the details are coming here with the same fields we have created in the view model. So we need to make use of this view model and this information and check the DB context class and invoke the save method to insert the changes to a database. So to do this, we need to create a constructor in the controller. So to create constructor, just press CTO and tab. And for this, I'm going to pass a parameter as application DB context, DB context here. So, and I think I'll create property. Yeah, I'll just click on this. It is directly adding a read-only object here. That object it is creating here. And here in the post method, when the model is coming, I'm going to make async operations here. Then I'm going to use task and of type iAction result and await db context dot add. And before do this, we need to call employees db context then add async. So before to this, we need to get the object here, add employee, if employee class, and for this, I need to assign the attributes of employee, like emp name equal to model dot emp name, email equal to vmodel dot email, and phone equal to vmodel dot phone, and we need to assign salary equal to we need model dot salary, and after that we need to pass this object to this add uh, async method. And after this, we need to make sure that we need to call a db context method, which is saving into a database. So when you are not calling this, it won't save into database. We need to invoke db context save changes so that it will write into database. You can call this in await itself so that it will save the changes in asynchronous process. Save changes async. Now save it and run this. Let's employ, add it, and I'm going to add it, and mail ID I'm going to, if I give some wrong number, it has to validate. It is saying this validation message, and it is working at the rate gmail.com, some mobile number, and some payment. So when I'm clicking on this save button, it has to save into database. Click on save. It is coming here, and this object is going to be saved in the DB context and then saved into a database. And going to the view, that is add view. Now go back to database and see whether that record is saved in the database or not. You just try to see employees. I can see here this is already saved into database. So now we're able to create a record and save that record into SQL Server with Entity Framework code. Now go back to Visual Studio, and you need to add other CRUD operations like the read and update and delete. So with that, we will see full CRUD operations dotted 8. I think let's see that in next session. Okay.